A white police officer kicked a pregnant black woman in broad daylight on an Alabama street, but he had no idea who her husband was. Charged justice for Marla. A regular afternoon in South River, Alabama, became national news when Marla Jenkins, a 33-year-old pregnant black woman, was assaulted in the street by Officer Troy Mutton without cause. What made a police officer believe that walking with a bag of oranges was suspicious behavior? And what happened when Leonard Jenkins, her husband, a former U.S. Marine, showed up? A bystander's video quickly went viral, sparking outrage and flooding social media with hashtags like #Justice for Marla, pregnant while black, #police. Brutality, Black Lives Matter. From a racist kick to a shocking courtroom trial, and ultimately the founding of the Jenkins Justice Foundation. This is a true story that will make you angry and give you hope. Watch till the end to understand why people are saying, he didn't just kick a pregnant woman, he kicked the conscience of America. Don't forget. Like if you believe justice has no color, comment your thoughts or share your own experience with the system. Subscribe for more stories about justice, racism, and the brave ones who stand up. Some afternoons are like a glass of water, clear, cool, and uneventful. But that day at bus stop 12B in Juniper, Georgia, water turned to tears, and silence turned into a scream. The whole country couldn't ignore. It began with Mrs. Alberta Jenkins, 68 years old, a retired elementary school teacher. She's black, wore a purple knit hat, and carried a Hello Kitty backpack. Don't ask why, live long enough and you'll understand. She stood waiting for the bus, as usual, holding a bag of red beans she'd just bought at the market with a soft smile still hanging at the corners of her mouth. No one expected that minutes later, that very smile would become the center of a video that shook the nation. And in that video appeared another figure. Officer Troy Mulvaney, white as toothpaste, built like an old refrigerator, and mad like someone had stolen his TV remote. He didn't greet Mrs. Jenkins. He didn't ask if she needed help. Instead, he growled, "What are you doing here? You look suspicious." Yes, a black elderly woman holding a bag of beans standing under the afternoon sun, wearing a cartoon backpack and a cardigan. Suspicious. As the footage of Officer Mulvaney's behavior began to spread, many remained doubtful. There must be more to it. Maybe she said something snarky, or the classic, "We haven't seen the full video yet." But sometimes you don't need to watch the whole movie to know who the villain is. Just ask yourself, if she weren't black, would this have happened? The answer is silence. But as we'll see, even silence can be deafening. On the sidewalks of Harmony, Georgia, a city with more churches than grocery stores and laws that seem to shift with white moods, Chandra Bell, 8 months pregnant, was walking home. She carried a bag of oranges on sale from Mr. Earl's, a store known for preaching virtue, but only to lighter-skinned customers. Chandra wasn't in a rush. She'd just finished a 12-hour shift at the community library where her day was filled with questions like, is Netflix part of the history section? And can I photocopy a birthday cake? As she walked, she thought about the mushroom-stewed ribs she planned to cook for her husband, Daryl, a former Marine, now running a trauma counseling center for veterans. She also considered wearing heels, the kind she could no longer manage. But Daryl always appreciated for the thought, and it should have ended there. But a white-gray patrol car stopped beside her. The door flung open, like the FBI had just spotted a Tier 1 terrorist, and no, it wasn't, because she was carrying oranges. Out stepped Officer Clyde Muckley, nearly 6'3", hair slicked back like he was ready to star in America's Most Dangerous White Men. His eyes scanned Chandra like she was a badly parked car, not a human being with life inside her. "Stop right there."
"What are you doing here?" he barked like someone had stolen the Constitution.
Chandra blinked. I'm walking home," she replied gently, in the cautious tone her mother taught her long ago. "Speak so white folks won't feel afraid." Clyde raised an eyebrow. He stepped closer, hand never straying far from his holstered weapon, as if she could weaponize citrus at any moment. "You look like you're loitering, scheming something. No one just walks. This is suspicious behavior." Chandra took a deep breath. She placed her hand on her belly. The baby kicked lightly, as if asking Mama what's happening. "I haven't done anything wrong," she said. "I just want to go home." "Don't get smart with me, Ms. Bell," he hissed, because of course someone like Clyde always Googles your last name first when preparing to be racist. No one nearby spoke up. A few curious glances peered through windows. A few phones discreetly recorded, but no one stepped outside. Because in Harmony, Georgia, being black might mean you live long if you know how to stay silent. And in Clyde's eyes, a pregnant black woman holding a bag of oranges was a national threat. And he was about to act. Gwen blinked a few times, thinking she must have misheard. Loitering. She stood straight, one hand resting on her belly, the paper bag of oranges swaying gently in the breeze. A quiet reminder that she was just a pregnant woman, buying fruit, not an escapee from a high-security prison. But Officer Chadwick didn't see a pregnant woman. He saw a dark force, as one of his misspelled, overly punctuated internal reports might put it. She was black. She was alone. She was breathing. Clearly, there was a crime in progress, possibly breathing too calmly in a designated serious zone. "What are you doing here?" Chadwick demanded, his hand moving dangerously close to his holstered gun, as if Gwen were about to launch a flying kick straight into his patrol car. I'm walking home," Gwen said softly, and regretted it instantly. Why on earth had she called herself to a man who looked at her like she was a flash sale? He was about to miss? Which home? Where ID? Chadwick snapped his eyes, scanning her like he was playing Who Wants to Be a Racist Millionaire? "I don't carry my birth certificate to buy oranges," Gwen replied, this time with a hint of sarcasm. Just a hint, but enough to spark fire in Chadwick's eyes. "You've got an attitude. I've seen your kind before," he growled. "Your kind." 3 small words that landed like a brick on the chest. Gwen had heard them too many times. At stores, at schools, at the post office. Always your kind. Gwen swallowed hard. "I'm pregnant, officer." "Please, cut the act," Chadwick interrupted. "You planning to sneak a birth on the corner of this street?" Gwen froze. Things were going off the rails, and in that moment, as the breeze brushed her maternity dress and her belly tightened in the final month, Gwen knew one thing. This wasn't his first time doing this, and if she stayed silent today, there would be more mothers clutching their stomachs on the sidewalk, picking up spilled oranges, all because some officer's ego was bigger than his badge. Not everyone knows how to shake a city with a single kick, but Sergeant Kurt McBrady, with his golden hair like churned butter and eyes cold as American hospital bills, exceeded expectations. Room 407, St. Mercy Hospital. Loretta Jones, the pregnant woman attacked, was resting after emergency treatment. But while her womb fought to keep life outside the internet, had given birth to a storm. A 37-second video, no filter, no music, just the screech of tires on pavement, and Loretta's scream of pain had been shared over 2 million times in just 8 hours. Beneath it, comment after comment read, "Protect black women, even when they're just walking. This is why I don't leave the house without 10 witnesses and a lawyer." And who else was watching the news in the hospital hallway? None other than the victim's husband, Terrence Jones, a veteran now running a counseling center for fellow vets. When the doctor told him that his pregnant wife had been kicked in the stomach by a police officer just for carrying oranges home, Terrence said nothing, not because he was speechless, but because he was planning. With a face carved from granite and eyes that had seen war, he whispered, "They picked the wrong person to mess with." Outside the hospital, a crowd was already forming, led by Ms. Margie, the elderly bingo queen of Tuesday nights, and a young black man holding a Bluetooth speaker. Signs were raised. "Justice for Loretta. I walk. I'm pregnant. I'm not loitering." Within hours, the crowd grew bigger than any Black Friday line. But instead of discounted TVs, they demanded justice. As for Sergeant McBrady, he was still on paid leave, eating a ham sandwich at home, nodding at CNN's headline, "Unfortunate incident under internal investigation." Oh yes, unfortunate? Like when Starbucks spells your name? LaQuisha, even though you clearly said Loretta. Meanwhile, in room 407, Loretta turned to her husband, her eyes swollen but fierce. "Terrence," she said, "I don't want our child growing up thinking this is normal." He took her hand, answering without hesitation, "Then we'll make it abnormal, starting tomorrow." And tomorrow would not be like today. Tomorrow the city would know who Loretta Jones was, and they would remember her not as a victim, but as the beginning. The kick didn't echo like thunder, but it silenced the entire street. Savannah Thompson, 35 years old and 8 months pregnant, lay sprawled on the pavement of Lexington's Central bus stop. One hand clutched her belly. The other reached for the scattered oranges that had flown from her grocery bag. It looked like someone had hit pause on the entire city, except for one person, Officer Brent Buzzcut, Malloy, who had just kicked a pregnant woman in the stomach like he was trying to sweep trash off the street. Savannah didn't scream. She only whispered, "Please, don't." But those words didn't register with Malloy. His ears part of a long family tradition dating back to his grandfather, who once led a neighborhood watch for white folks, only picked up frequencies from pale skin upward. A young woman shouted, "Oh my God, is anyone recording this?" And then, like mushrooms after rain, phones began to rise. No one intervened. Everyone knew Lexington's unwritten rule. Touch a white cop, even to stop him from kicking a pregnant black woman, and you'll earn yourself handcuffs and a headline, "Subject resists while obstructing lawful arrest." Malloy, still moving like a robot coded in 1957, turned away without a word. Savannah lay there, belly taut, eyes wide open. The world spun. Oranges rolled beneath her feet, like silent witnesses no one would call to the stand. But, unlike other times, this time was different. A camera caught it all, and a second-year communications student finally figured out how to use a hashtag properly. Say her name, Savannah Thompson. Within just 3 hours, a 32-second clip, no filter, no music, surpassed 2 million views. On screen, a pregnant black woman kicked in the stomach by a police officer, not for a weapon, not for resistance, but simply for walking home. At the hospital, when Gavin Thompson, her husband, a former Marine, and now a trauma counselor for veterans, arrived, people noticed something in his eyes. Not ordinary anger, but the look of someone who knew exactly how to dismantle a system piece by piece. And when Gavin walked out of the ER, his eyes no longer asked, "Why did this happen?" They asked, "Who do they think they just kicked?" Leaving the hospital, Loretta sat in a wheelchair. Her legs were weak, her belly bandaged, but her head was held high like she was walking a justice runway. Candles still glowed outside the hospital, and the crowd had grown larger than the city council's entire seating capacity. In Gavin's hand was his phone. He didn't call the police. He didn't call the mayor. He called Earl Washington, a veteran civil rights lawyer best known for forcing 3 Boston cops to switch careers to supermarket security guards. The call lasted exactly 37 seconds. "What do you need?" Earl asked, voice thick with whiskey and litigation. "Justice, and an indictment longer than an IKEA bed assembly manual." Gavin replied, "Got it. Send the video. I like taking down medal-wearing morons." Within 2 hours, the internet exploded. The video of Officer Craig kicking Loretta's belly had been shared 4 million times. A viral caption read, "He called her a loiterer, but she was carrying the future of a generation." Below the post, comments surged. "Unbelievable. I've seen cops rescue cats from sewers, and here they're kicking pregnant women like garbage." Welcome to America, where a black woman's womb is a national security threat. Support. Loretta. If they won't fire the cop, we'll fire the mayor. And so the city's mayor, Abigail Lynch, a platinum blonde white woman best known for once slipping while giving a speech on equity in law enforcement, was forced to speak. At a press conference the next morning, she sat upright, eyes glistening, like she'd just watched a Korean drama finale, and said, "We are deeply concerned by this incident. Officer Craig has been placed on paid administrative leave pending investigation. We ask the public to remain calm." Of course, paid was the key word that ignited even more rage. A 76-year-old man from a neighboring state screamed into a CNN mic, "If I kicked a cat, I'd be sued." He kicks a pregnant woman and gets paid. What is this? A game show? While city officials scrambled to calm the public with bottled water and hollow apologies. Gavin wasn't sitting still. He recorded a short video standing outside his wife's hospital room. "My wife was attacked for being pregnant and black. This isn't personal. This is systemic. And we're not waiting for justice anymore. We're dragging it into the light." The video ended with Loretta holding Gavin's hand, whispering, "If it's a boy, we'll name him Justice. If it's a girl, still justice." No one was prepared for a Marine vet to lead a social uprising via email. The next morning, before the sun had even had its coffee, more than 300 people were standing outside Linwood County Hospital. They weren't shouting. They weren't banging drums. They weren't burning tires. They were just standing, silent, but as unmovable as reinforced concrete. In their hands were signs, "Justice for Darlene." Black isn't a reason for suspicion. My mom used to just walk home, too. An old woman, 2/3 of her teeth gone, but smiling brightly, shoved a microphone into Marcellus's hand. "Go on, baby. The people are waiting, and I gotta pee, but since I'm already here, I'll hold it." Marcellus looked down at the mic, then up at the crowd, then back at the mic. And he, a man who hated speeches as much as cats hate baths, began to speak. "My name is Marcellus Boone. The woman you saw in that video. The one who was kicked in the stomach like she was a punching bag in a boxing gym. That's my wife, Darlene. And that belly wasn't beer. That was my son. His name is Justice. The air stilled, like the whole city was holding its breath. She was just walking. Just breathing. But because of her skin, because of her braids, because of eyes that didn't look at the ground. A police officer named Doug Buckley, whose record includes more wrong arrests than right ones, chose my wife for his afternoon workout. Marcellus lifted his head, his voice calm, like telling a preschool story, but every word landed like a hammer. I'm not asking for privilege. I'm not seeking revenge. I just want the simplest thing, what white folks get without even asking. Respect. Applause followed, not roaring like a stadium, but solid like a verdict. A woman clutching a folding chair wept openly. A college student live-streamed the moment on TikTok with the caption, "Mom, today I saw a black man speak, and the whole city listened." Marcellus stepped down and handed the mic back to the toothless elder. "All done, ma'am. You can go pee now." She chuckled and patted his back. "Or, then done, baby, you just lit the fire." And it was true. The fire was lit. Not to burn, but to illuminate. That day wasn't sunny. It wasn't rainy either. It was just overcast enough to suggest the truth was about to step out of the shadows. Wearing a tailored suit, the courtroom was packed. Front row, the victim's family. Second row, the press. Back row, the usual faces from the 8 o'clock news. And a third seat on the right. Yes, right there sat Jerry Loudermilk, the man who filmed the incident. He wore a T-shirt that read, "I was there, I filmed it." The judge walked in his face as solemn as someone enduring heartburn, rather than preparing to oversee a case where a pregnant black woman was kicked by a cop. Sergeant Carl Donahue, the social drama's leading man, sat silent. Gray suit, stone face eyes, trying to look harmless, but unable to hide the wince of a man who knows he's out of moves. And he was from the first video clip the footage played on a big screen, like a school movie screening. Except this time, no one was eating popcorn. Everyone held their breath. They watched. A pregnant black woman walking home stopped for not walking like a properly monitored citizen. Then the shouting, the threats, and the kick that woke a city. The room fell silent. Even the courthouse security guard stopped checking his phone. Then came the witnesses. An ER doctor stood up and said, "I've sewn up soldiers' stomachs in war zones, but I've never patched up a pregnant woman after a police boot." The jury stayed quiet. Someone wiped their glasses. No one cracked a joke. And then Celeste took the stand. No, now she was Monique Delaney. Gone were the bruises. Gone was the fear. She stood straight, hair tied up, wearing an olive green dress and eyes that silenced the court like a school assembly when the principal walks in. She told her story. Still the walk home, still the bag of oranges, still the barking orders, the suspicious eyes of Donahue, and then the kick that never should have happened. She stopped there. No need to cry. Her voice was firm enough for the nation to hear. "My child survived," she said, eyes locked on the jury. "But I'm not sure justice did." The defense attorney tried to push back, claiming a reasonable sense of threat, because Monique moved with unclear purpose. But the video said it all. Unclear purpose. She was walking home with oranges and maternal instinct, not filming Fast and Furious 11. By the end of the day, the prosecutor delivered one final surgical blow. If you still believe this was a professional mishap, ask yourself, if that woman had been white blonde holding a latte and a Whole Foods bag, would she have been kicked? And then the court waited. Monique held her husband's hand. The jury stepped out. The air in the courtroom that day was ice cold, not because the AC was too strong, but because every eye in the room was locked on one man who was once called Officer of the Year, at least according to his own nomination. On the defendant's bench, former officer Wade Big Boots. Darnell sat in a gray suit, hair slicked back with gel, but nothing could hide the tension carved into every line of his face. Shifty eyes, jaw clenched tight like he was chewing on a pebble of justice. Across from him, front row, sat Mavis Carter, the 33-year-old black woman he had kicked in the stomach while she was pregnant. She said nothing. She just gripped her husband, Terrence's hand, like she was holding on to a storm. And in a rare moment of stillness, as the judge entered and the room stood, one man did not wade fumbling to his feet slower than justice moves in America. Mavis's attorney, Carla Remy, once described as a crusader in a blazer, stepped forward, holding a file thicker than the entire police department's training budget. "Your Honor," she began, voice calm but sharp as a razor. "This case isn't just about a kick, it's about a system that allowed a white police officer to kick a pregnant black woman on the street, and then rewarded him with paid leave." The prosecution called its first witness, the hot dog vendor who had filmed the incident. He stood adjusting a baseball cap that read "Justice for Mavis," and said, "I was just recording a TikTok about grilling sausages," and ended up filming a live edition of Police Brutality. Next came the ER nurse. "I've never seen anyone come into the hospital with injuries from being misunderstood, but I did see a clear boot-shaped bruise under her belly." Then came the climax. Mavis took the stand. She spoke softly, but didn't tremble. "I was just walking home. I didn't scream. I didn't resist. I just had brown skin and a bag of oranges. Maybe that's all it takes to be a threat," in his eyes. The courtroom froze. No one dared exhale. Even the live stream camera glitched, as if too moved to go on. Wade's defense attorney did what defense attorneys do. "My client reacted in a high-stress situation." Carla raised an eyebrow. Stress. A pregnant woman holding oranges stressed him more than a bank robbery. It took the jury only 3 hours to return. "We find the defendant guilty on all counts." Mavis exhaled. Terrence held her tears rolling, not from triumph, but because, finally, someone had truly listened. As they left the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Microphones rose like a forest of antennas. But this time, Mavis stepped forward. "Justice is not about one day or one verdict," she said. "It's about a lifetime. And starting today, we're living that life with no bowing, no fear, and no silence." Terrence said just one sentence. "They kicked the wrong pregnant woman. She didn't back down, and now the system will." And so, in a city that once treated silence as the most comfortable way to survive, a new sound echoed applause. Chants of Mavis's name, and a song of justice, not sung through megaphones, but carried in the courage of one woman, one wrongful kick, and a society that had grown far too tired of waiting.